Hello and welcome back to the Introduction to Ansible section of this course. In this video, we're going to be talking about Ansible playbooks. Now, I've mentioned playbooks a handful of times before this particular video, and here we're going to be talking about what playbooks actually look like, how they're structured, and what information is needed to be able to run a playbook. See, playbooks are really the building blocks of Ansible network automation, that you construct a playbook and execute it against your managed nodes to be able to accomplish some task in a more automated fashion and be able to audit the completion of that task and retry it in the event it fails on some of your managed nodes. So let's go ahead and take a look at the structure of a playbook. So first up, a playbook is used to execute a series of plays. That you have this structure here, right? That you have a playbook, which is your overall file. It's coded in YAML. We had talked about YAML in our previous data serialization section. And this YAML file has a collection of plays that you can have different plays. Each one of these will have a different name and a different set of tasks within each of those plays. That a play runs tasks on a host or a collection of hosts, i.e. a group, and that a task calls a function defined in Ansible modules, and those modules are coded in Python. So each play consists of one or more tasks, and each task executes modules. That this is just getting a little bit of what Ansible terminology is, that a module is executed by a task, and a task is run within a play, and a playbook contains one or more plays, and the playbook as a whole is written in YAML. Great, so that's a playbook. Let's start taking a look at the actual structure here to give a little more real-world content to our information and theory. So this illustrates the initial play information for a Juniper device specifically. So here we have a list item, which is the name of our play. That a play is a list item as defined by our hyphen here. We see the 3 hyphens defining the start of our YAML file. Now, within our list item play here, we have the name of our play. We have a definition of what hosts that this play will execute against. And then we have our list of roles that should be imported with this play. You can have one or more roles imported within a play. And then we have our connection being local. This is required due to our devices being managed via netconf, that we should specify not to gather facts of our local Ansible management host because we just don't need to gather facts of our Linux server every time that we execute a play, right? So this is just the initial little metadata information that you would have within your play. So let's take a look at a full playbook here. So we have, again, our start of our YAML file and our list item, which is one play. We have one play within this playbook here because we have one list item. The play is called getFacts. We are executing it against our VSRX group, or VSRX could potentially be the name of a host as well. But here we have our group VSRX, and we have our roles that we are importing, which is the Ansible Galaxy Juniper.Junos role. And of course, our connection is local, and we are saying no for gathering facts of our local device. So then we have our section here of our vars prompt. This is a special section of the play where we can prompt the user to manually enter some variables. In this case, we're storing our username variable and our password variable. Our private specification here defines whether our input that we're typing on the keyboard is displayed on the screen while we're typing it. So we're saying that yes, our password should be private, and that we are prompting our end user for device username and device password. You could prompt for any other variables here as well. And then we have our list of tasks. The tasks is a mapping, and a mapping that contains several list items. So within our list item here, we have the name of our task, and then we have our module that we are looking to execute. In this case, the Juniper Junos Fax module from the juniper.junos role. This is used to gather the device information, and it takes in a username and password parameter for authentication to the device. And here we are using our username and password variables. Now, note that this is within our double braces, indicating this is Jinja formatting, and our variables are replaced here using Jinja on the back end for our user and passwd arguments. And then finally, in this particular task, we are registering the output to a variable named device_fax. That the register item there is used to save the output of a module to a variable for usage later in the playbook. And as we see just below that here in our second task, that our task is to print the device fax, that the debug module is a really handy one for outputting information to the console. And here we are just outputting the entirety of the registered variable, which is device fax. I would go ahead and take a screenshot of this example here and make sure that you are familiar with the structure of a playbook. It will likely come up within your exam to define where certain information is, perhaps in a drag and drop format or in a multiple choice. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like to execute a playbook. And in the following video after this, within this section, we will be taking a live look at using Ansible and what it actually looks like to execute playbooks against live devices. However, I do want to take a brief look here within this context on what it's like to execute this particular playbook. That we should be taking in our username and password. We should be running two tasks, one to get the device fax, and then one to actually output those fax to the console. So let's take a look at that now. So we see up here on our first line that we are executing our Ansible playbook command against the Junos Fax YAML file. That is our playbook. We have here that it is prompting for both our device username and device password, and that our password is kept secret here. It is not displayed on the screen while we're typing it. Now, our playbook is being executed against two different devices within our VSRX group. Now, you may have seen that in our previous video, that in the inventory, our VSRX group did contain two different devices. And then that task of retrieving the device fax, it executed and came back with OK. It executed successfully on both of those devices, and then we are printing those fax. And we see here is done in text format, and that we have each of our items for our fax. So we have our RE0, our routing engine information, the model, that this is a VSRX that this is executing against, so it is the Firefly model of the VSRX, that the Python interpreter is Python 3 that's available, and that our uptime here is just a little over 2 weeks. Our recap of our play execution, we see both of our tasks executed successfully and gave us a return of OK. And then it spat us back out to the prompt here. Great, so that's an overview of the structure of a playbook. I would make sure you're very familiar with the structure of a playbook and the needed items here. You do need to have a name and a list of hosts that it's executing against. You need to import a role, and that your connection with Juniper devices will always be local, and you will always set gather facts to no, because we are not needing to gather the facts of our local Ansible management node. Great. I will also give you a reference here as to a information source that I personally use very often when I am developing Ansible playbooks, and that's the Read the Docs page on Ansible modules, Junos Ansible modules. This is really great. At the time of this recording, 2.4.3 is the current version of that page. It might be newer. It will link you to the newest one if you end up going here. This gives you a great breakdown of the different parameters that you can use for each of your modules. We just happened to run the Juniper Junos Facts module here, and it took the user and passwd parameters. We could have run any number of the available modules within the Ansible Galaxy Juniper.Junos role, and the Read the Docs page is excellent on providing the information that's required, what parameters are needed, what type of information it is, if it's a number or string, and the type of information and length of information that it will take. I really recommend taking a look at this if you're interested in developing any further Ansible playbooks. Great. I really appreciate you going through that with me. I hope that this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.